thought it would be fun to do a video of what it's like to be Catholic versus Protestant. I grew up Catholic and then I was Protestant for almost 10 years and now I'm Catholic again. It's been a few years now, but I thought I would just go through some comparisons very casually. So let's start with like the biggest one, which is like service, so like Sunday service versus Mass. And I will say the last like Protestant church I went to, one was Baptist and one was like non-denominational. And the last one I went to was sort of a megachurch. So the first half of service was just listening to the band. It was like an electric guitar, drums, and probably like 10 people singing, and we would sing worship music. Now, when we compare that to the Catholic Church, I personally love the reverence of the Catholic Church. But if I were to go to like a Protestant church for like a worship night or something, let's say on like a Friday night, I think the music they have is really fun. And I still think people are trying to worship God. I just think the reverence and beauty and the seriousness, I would say, of Mass is very important. Like, I don't think I would ever go back to a church where there are guitars and such during Mass or service, but I digress. That's the first comparison. Next, I would say the Protestant services I went to, usually they would talk about like missions or anything that was coming up, and the mega church I guess I went to had like a big screen and projector, so we would like watch some videos they had made. Again, I think it was mostly good and good messaging, so that would happen. And then there would usually be a sermon, which was pretty long. If you're not Catholic, we have something called homilies, so the priest will talk about the gospel reading and give some context to the gospel reading, and sometimes a priest will like speak about more of like a personal story as well, which is similar to pastors in a Christian Protestant service. So yeah, the comparison would be the sermons were a lot longer when I was Protestant. Homilies are typically shorter. And you know, I did get some things out of Protestant sermons from the pastors. I would say it was a lot more though about like personal experiences, at least the pastors I went to. But I should say there were pastors who were really good about making sure we were not living in sin. I did really appreciate, I will say, even though I went to a mega church, I think they were really trying to push like what was a sin. And then in Mass, obviously, we have the Eucharist. So we receive the true body and blood of Jesus Christ. And when I went to Protestant church, I think like once a month they would hand out those little like cups of grape juice, like with the plastic on, or like the tin on top of them to seal it, and like bread in a container. And I will be honest, I never really took communion as a Protestant. I must have still known intrinsically like that's not real communion, so I just never took the communion when I was Protestant, maybe a few times over the years. But in Catholic Church, we observe transubstantiation, which is where the priest is standing with the communion host, and that is the moment that the host turns into the actual body and blood of Jesus Christ, and then we go up and receive the Eucharist. And yeah, that obviously is, I would say, the main difference between Catholicism and a Protestant church. And then, yeah, depending on what kind of denomination you go to as well. I know some people say non-denominational churches are not Protestant, but I think they are grouped in with the Protestants. Depending on what kind of church you went to, I know there's going to be a ton of differences, but these are just the differences I remember in my old Protestant church versus the Catholic church now. So I'll make a part 2 of this, but yeah, let me know if you've been to Protestant and Catholic church, like what the main differences you observed are.